Hello friends, Mark Johnson here. Welcome back to my series on TRIRIGA development. In this session, we are going to start talking about business objects, and we will discuss just the business object properties. As we're creating a business object, we're going to walk through the process of creating a business object inside of a module. These are going to be a series of videos because there's a lot of different parts, the business objects, associations, fields, field properties, which vary based off of the field type, and there's a bunch of different field types, and then you've got smart sections, BO mappings, so state family. So there's lots of different parts. We're going to break this up into a little bit of series. So this will be part one. I'm going to walk through just the process of creating a custom business object in our custom module. So we have here is the login screen to our TRIRIGA 11.1 4.1 environment, which, if you recall last time, we created a module called CST Sports. So we'll just continue with that particular theme, and we will go ahead and we'll create a business object in it. In order to create a business object, we need to go to the data modeler tool. So I'm going to go from the screen here to tools and do the data modeler. Now, if I go to the object browser, hover over it, it's going to pop open, and we can see our CST Sports module is there. Right. So to create a new business object, you come up to this new toolbar, and we're going to say business object. And by convention, whenever you create the first business object in a module, it is given the name of the module, right? Because the very first business object that gets created in a module is special. It's what's called a base business object, and the base business object serves as a template for all other business objects that get created in that module. So whatever fields are on the base business object, whatever associations, whatever the state family is on that base business object, those things will all get inherited by the new business objects when you create them. Now, the additional business objects in the module, they're not tied to the base business object so that if you change something on the base business object, it goes and updates it on those other business objects. So it's just a template that's used at the time of creation of those additional business objects. It will copy those things. So we need to specify our module first. So it's CST Sports, and the name based off convention, we're going to give it the base BO. So in the UI, there's nothing here. There's no property or value that tells me that this is the base business object. However, in the database, there is a column or a setting called root flag, which would tell you if it's the base business object. So you can identify it through the back end if you know the tables. So the name field here is going to match the module because it's base business object. You don't want to make a mistake here because you can't delete a base business object. And once you save, right, the name is final. So don't make a mistake. Make sure you have it right. The display name is just another name for the label, right? So in objects in TRIRIGA, they usually have names and labels. So the label is generally presentation. It's for the users of the system. So you want to have it in readable and understandable by the user. So you would generally get rid of any suffixes or prefix and that sort of thing that may be in there. So again, that it's nice and readable. The description, right, is going to be it's for the developer, right? And those are the ones that see the description here, right? That tells you, how are, is this BO going to get used in the system? End users do not see this value, right? So they're not going to, know based off of what's here. So our name, our label, our description is set. The very first, real, additional property is going to be determining the type of business object. Now there are 4 types. They're standalone, embedded, link, and externally managed. 99.999% of the time, you're just going to select standalone. It is the default value. You can pretty much just always go ahead and take it. The embedded and the linked, those are there primarily for legacy support. They had a deal, with ways of kind of displaying information prior to the existence of smart sections and queries and that sort of stuff. And so, for some of these properties and stuff that don't get used often, or you don't do very often, you may likely forget, what they do. I find that I do, and I have to go and I have to look it up. So, we are fortunate that, the application builder guide does cover it, right? So the, standalone, embedded, link, externally managed, right? You can see that embedded records, they can't be accessed, from the results of a query. Um, Only access through other records, the linked records, right? Blur the difference between types of records referenced by a smart section, right? All this is legacy support, which you don't need to really worry about anymore because modern TRIRIGA, has smart sections and query sections and, all that make it easier to access and get to the data that you want. So you can just leave those blank again, 99% of the time and not worry about it. Externally managed, you're only going to ever select that as if you're creating fact tables, right? Which are used as part of, WPM. So very, very rarely would you ever do it. Staging table. So the staging table property came about once Data Connect was introduced. So what the staging table does for us is it gives us a way that we can load data into that table, and then Data Connect workflows will take the data that is in that table and create the underlying records in the system. So whenever you create a business object in TRIRIGA, that business object creates a table in the database, and that table is called a T table. And it's called a T table because the name of the table is literally prefix T underscore, and then the name of the business object. Now, the name of the table can only be 22 characters long. So if you've got a really long business object, right, it's going to kind of truncate the name. And if you've got multiple ones that kind of start off with those same 22 characters, right? Then it's going to kind of replace characters with underscores, that sort of stuff, to make the name unique. So you have the T table, and then the staging table, right, is an S table. So you'll see those in the database as S underscore, and again, whatever the business object name is. So there are a few types of settings here, right? There's data connect and there's generic. So as of this version of TRIRIGA 11.1, 4.1, you'll never select generic because generic was put in place for use by TDI, which was the Tivoli Data Integration, which was the IBM kind of ETL tool that is no longer supported by TRIRIGA. So because it's not supported, you're not going to select that, right? And then there's Data Connect, which it's going to create the staging table and the additional columns that Data Connect needs for that staging table, and then there's none. The next property is has calendar. That allows a calendar to be created that gets associated with this particular object. We're not going to do that, right? But where you see this in the system is, like with spaces, right? Because you want to be able to reserve those. You need to have a calendar associated with them so that you can see them to know when, it's in use or not in use. So reserve makes extensive use of calendars. Audit actions. So if you need to be able to capture an audit trail for this record, you're going to enable the audit actions. So there's a few different settings that go together with this with the auditing, and so depending on the type or level of auditing, you will configure these different settings. So the first level of auditing, or the lowest level of auditing is this audit actions. And so what that says is that anytime there's a state transition, right? And so remember that save, and close, those are state transitions. And whenever there's a state transition, that is going to cause a record to get created that captures that information of that transition, right? Who performed the transition and at what's the date and time, right? So you have that that trail, and so for these audit records, they'll show up. There'll be an extra tab on the form of the record that that shows the audit information. Now, the audit tables that these records get put into are not TRIRIGA T tables, so they're not directly accessible by the TRIRIGA queries. And so if you need to be able to report on the different stuff, then you have to do it, using SQL and advanced reporting, like BERT, to be able to join and pull that information together. The next level of auditing is the audit access, right? And this means that a record is going to get kept every time someone views a record of this business object, right? So that's a much higher level. Again, right, the higher the level of the recording and the more you're recording, the bigger the performance impact is on the system. So you want to be aware of this and what you're capturing or what you're not uh, capturing. So if you are auditing, then there's the field values, right? That somebody can modify a record, do more than just state transition it. And sometimes you need to capture that those field values were changed, right? So if it's on no audit, that means that those field values are not going to get captured when it changes. The audit interactive data, well, that means that when um, a value is changed and the record is kept, right? And it's going to, record, what the value was, what it was changed to, who changed it, and the date and time that it was changed. So it does not capture, like when, things are changed via workflow, that sort of thing, right? It's only users through the UI. Now, if you need that higher level of capture, you can do that. Again, it's a more of a performance impact. The audit all data, right? That's going to capture when field values get changed, whether it's because of formula or because of roll-ups or because of workflow. The only limitation to that is that it does not capture when a value is changed via an editable query. The next setting is require explanation. So this is going to work in conjunction with the audit interactive data or in the audit all data so that when a user goes to change a field value, it's going to pop up a little window and they're going to have to put in the reason that they're changing it. Why are you changing this field value, right? And then that's a different additional information that will get captured in that audit log. Show single tab. Well, this is almost never used. I've actually never used it myself, but what it'll do is that'll limit whatever form is shown for this object type to where it'll have a single tab only, right? You'll not be able to use forms that I'm sorry. If the checkbox is not checked, you will not be able to use forms that only show a single tab with records created from this object. So it limits the form, and again, it's something I've never actually used in 13 years, so it's not real common. You probably won't run into it at all. The approval history, if this is setting is set and approvals are set up for this record, then that approval information will get captured and it'll display an additional tab on that form so you can see what the approval history is for a given record. And then the created by, you can see, right, there's nothing you can do or set when you create the business object. I'm going to go ahead and save the business object. And what that's going to do, that's going to finalize our name. So I'm just going to double check again that our name is correct. It is what I want. And I'll save the BO. So once this saves, the name It's locked in. You cannot change it. And because this is the base VO, you can't delete it. So if you made a mistake, the only thing you could do at this point would be to rename the module, right? Prefix it with like a Z or something like that so it shows up all the way at the bottom and not in your normal list, and then you don't use it since there isn't a mechanism for deleting, right? The platform will tell you it can't delete the business object because it's the base business object. So it would be nice if they made it to where, you would recognize that, hey, the BO is just created, it's never been published, so it should be able to be deleted, but unfortunately that logic isn't there. In order to delete this, you would have to go and delete directly in the database, so you'd have to know the different tables that are involved in order to do that. So now that we've saved the business object, you see the name is locked in, we can't change that. We do have a few other properties that have popped up. So underneath the approval history, pre-create workflow. The pre-create workflow means that at the time of record creation, so the very first time a record is being created, then you want this workflow to run. And so to perform, some certain type of logic. And so you would specify that workflow here. The created by, the modified by, the modified date, right? Those are kind of self-explanatory. It's that information will get populated by the system. These are not values that you can put in. The revision number, also, it's populated by the system. Now, we have not published our business object. At this point, we have only saved the business object. We couldn't publish this business object if we wanted to because we don't meet all the criteria for publishing the business object, right? First of all, we would have to have the BO mapping set, which are actually a piece of the BO mapping. The published name has to be set because the published name is what tells the system what makes a record unique for this particular object, right? And we'd have to also have a valid state family. So we haven't set our state family. We haven't done the BO mappings. Those will both be separate videos. So at this point, we can't publish. But once we publish, right, the system would then go ahead and populate the information with the appropriate data for our user. And then the object label, it's starting off as in progress, right? And then we would have to give it an object label once we have published this particular business object, right? So that's all the properties that are there for creating a business object. So in our next set of videos, we will go through creating fields and some of the different, field properties. We have the associations, right? So the associations, their properties, and then we'll probably end up finishing off the base BO before we get to smart sections, which are also created off of associations and show up over here in the association list. So there's that, the state family, and all those different, potential settings. That's going to be another video. And then the BO mappings and the settings that are involved there will also probably be another video. So stay tuned. We will continue on our journey of creating a business object in TRIRIGA. But for now, uh, that concludes this video. This is the business object and the business object properties, the BO properties. I appreciate you watching these videos. Please like and subscribe to the channel. If you want to see me to continue to make these videos, I will continue to monitor that and see the interest. If the interest just isn't there, then I will probably discontinue making the videos because this does take a lot of time and effort on my part. But if you do like it, make sure mention in the comments. You can message me directly on LinkedIn. I'm very accessible. So please provide some feedback. I appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next lesson.